This is in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut. Visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
.805 and Kathy, you know how it goes.
I do, but I'm disappointed because I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
it's just
so that
8:05. I can't start my day.
Something.
I can't start my day. I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, so
we need a clock. Come on,
he got the hint and he put a thing down in the corner.
8:06 and a half.
Is that official? Does that really go
It's
with
synced
the
up to my
8:06?
computer and it's hooked up to the atomic clock.
Well, I guess
we'll have to accept that.
We're going to have to. We're going to Ken, we can make change.
I still want a big red countdown over there. I'm not going to let it go.
That's on order.
And no one knows what we're talking about. They have no clue if they haven't listened to you all the time. But we like...
I've got my listeners.
Okay. 20, 23?
24.
24.
I think we're up to 24 now. Somebody told me 24 during the Pumpkin Fest.
Oh, well, we've picked one up. We're doing well. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of you, Ken.
Yep.
Big crowd of listeners there today, and we're all set for them this morning.
And because I bought a whole 12-pack of this stuff, I don't have my normal seltzer water here. I still have some more Unicorn Kisses flavored polar stuff, which... Really, I think it's more like unicorn farts or something. This stuff is horrible.
Just throw it away, Ken. Donate
it. Ken, throw it away. No, it's not going to happen.
Pete, do you realize what you just said to me?
I
Ken,
did.
Throw it away?
I did.
Not
Donate
happening.
Donate it somewhere.
Kathy, would you bunch of Kenny kisses? You'd rather take the unicorn, right?
I'm going with a unicorn.
Okay.
This is way over my head. We're going back. All right. Moving along now.
Today is the 22nd day of October in the year 2019. Anno Domini. This is the Den, Ken's Den.
22nd of October already.
Yes.
Holy smokes. It is coming along fast.
Mm-hmm. You know what came along fast? Pumpkin Fest.
It did.
And Channel 15, and when I say Channel 15, that means
how about Kenny Stomsky Productions?
That means I was out there.
You were.
Lugging the camera up and down Elm Street all day. I went home, and my legs and my arms and my back were shot.
I'll bet.
And then I couldn't go to sleep until I at least looked at what I had. Mm-hmm. All right. So I went from 150-ish files, which are video clips in the digital world, and I indexed them to 105 before I went to bed that night.
How many hours did that take you?
A few.
I'll bet. And I don't think people understand that once you take the video, then you have to edit it.
Right.
And this is your own time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you when you index, you go from a file, a number for the file that the camera creates.
Okay.
And then you give it its own name so that you know what it is. So then when you go to do post-production, you know where to fit it in and what you're dealing with. So you don't have to keep watching them over and over again.
Oh, my word.
Now, those 105 files, mm-hmm. they end up being 19.8 gigabytes worth of video.
Oh, dear God in heaven.
I took a 5-hour... Pete, that big battery on the JVC, is that a 5-hour battery?
It's close to that, yeah.
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. When I was done, I had 26 minutes left on it.
Oh, my gosh. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
No wonder you were exhausted.
Yeah. But between all the election forums that we're doing over the next few weeks, either myself or Pete are filming these. But then after we film them, we need to cut them into size, mm-hmm. and then we need to upload them to the Channel 15 system. So along with that, I also have the Pumpkin Fest to do the post on. So it's going to be a few weeks.
It's nice
probably.
to know you finally feel my pain, Ken.
We do.
We really need to talk about a second payroll position here at WCPC, Pete.
That's up to the big guy.
Yeah, just to,
just to keep up with it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So no, that's why we have community volunteers like you, Ken.
Yeah.
We need more of you.
There's only one of me. And
we need more volunteers.
There will never be.
You know what, Peter?
We need more volunteers.
We go through this all the time looking for tech people at the theater and to run lights and do the sound and set the lights. And it's really hard to find people. They want to be paid. They just, to find volunteers, it's
and then you train them. And then you train them during the week. And when the weekend comes up and they have a better option, they ghost you.
They're busy.
It wasn't like that when I was in high school, though, because the only place you could do TV was at a public access station. So
yeah, well,
nowadays you just do it on your phone. Which
now they just ghost you on the weekend after committing.
That happens too. We say people will say, "Oh yeah, well, I'll do it." You're a week before production, and they call and go, "Oh, I forgot.
Oh, my sister's having a graduation party that weekend.
I was going to go out and eat Hershey bars."
In reality, though, I'm just going to stay home and shampoo my hair because I just don't want to do that on the weekend.
Our big one is my grandmother died. We always wonder how many grandmothers
can somebody have?
Wait, didn't that happen last week too?
8:12, and Pete, time for a quick break, and we'll get to our first candidate interview.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com. www.westfieldstateplus.com. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
It is the 22nd day of October. It's 8:14 and a quarter.
A quarter.
All right, let's say a quarter.
We're good. All right, we're good.
In the middle of our October candidate interviews, today I have 3 more. Tomorrow, Tina has several. And then the following week, that's the last week with 3 more there, and then Tina has a few.
Okay.
So we're going to start off this morning with candidate for Ward 6, Jeffrey Neese. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Okay, yeah, you're going to move yourself just a little bit over. Okay, good. All right, the microphone will pick you up. Good.
Is that better?
Yep,
Good.
that's perfect.
Okay.
All right, so before we even get into the questions, I like to get to know you, even if I know you, because my viewers may not.
Sure.
So tell me where you grew up, where you went to school, and what do you do?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on the show this morning. It's not every day somebody gets to come on the Ken and Kathy show, so thanks very much.
Right.
So, 1975, graduate of Chicopee High School. Both of my parents' families were from Chicopee. From there, I went to Springfield Technical Community College and received an associate's degree in civil engineering. Worked my way through college by doing that. I worked at if you remember the Sears in West Springfield, I ran the loading dock at night while going to school. And then I went to Boston. I went to Wentworth Institute, received a bachelor's degree in architectural engineering, and stayed there for about 10 years. Worked as a structural engineer in Harvard Square for a company called Weidlinger Associates. At the time, in the early to mid 80s, we were designing Monarch Place in the Sheraton Hotel. So from there, it segued into me moving back. And instead of going to Chicopee, I came to Westfield. And I've been in a Westfield residence for 34 years, since 1985. I segued from designing Monarch Place and Sheraton Hotel with other team members into the construction part of it. So I worked for Daniel O'Connell's. I was a site engineer for the building of Monarch Place and the Sheraton Hotel. From there, I really stayed in the commercial construction business. I'm not as an owner, but as a chief estimator. I went on the management side of construction, and it wasn't residential. It was all heavy commercial stuff. Monarch Place and the hotel and the Barnes & Noble shopping center over by the mall is another one of the projects I worked on with a team of managers. So I stayed in the commercial part of that for a number of years, and then I had an opportunity to be the Southwick Public Works Director, and I did that for 9 years until 2013. Great experience. I got my water operator's license with the state. I ran their water system. I ran their sewer collection system. I ran their highway department. From there, went to Chicopee. Ran 9 departments in Chicopee. $30 million worth of budget, 150 unionized and non-unionized employees. Great experience, but 9 departments in one city of 60,000 people is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's, most people think about snowstorms when you're running the DPW. It's a lot more than that. And so the whole experience of my career really culminated in retirement this past June.
Good.
So I'm able to enjoy that, but it's not all cracked up to be. You get up every morning, you go somewhere for 40 years, and then you don't. So you're looking for something to be able to be functional and to give back. It's almost a cliche, giving back, but really for me, I still have the tools and the licenses to be able to contribute to the city that helped raise my kids, and has been wonderful to me.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let's jump into it. Why do you want to serve on the city council? I think we kind of started to get into that.
Right. Yeah. So, aside from all the political cliches of wanting to give back and we need change and things like that, I really feel functional in being able to help the city with the current problems it has. And everybody focuses on the roads and the water problem. So I have a lot of ideas about the roads and how we can improve the way we fund it and improve the way we get attention from the state. And I think we'll get into a little bit of that.
We will.
The water problem is unique to us now. It's not unique to communities across the country. PFAS is a substance that's in a lot of water systems and a lot of environmental conditions. It's not everywhere, but it's in a lot of places. In our case, it's in the water system, in the aquifer. I think I'm in a unique position to understand a little bit more than the average citizen because I have a water operator's license with the state. I essentially could run the water system in Westfield if I needed to. It involves a lot of chemistry and biology and understanding of what the regulations are with the DEP under the Clean Water Act, which was some years ago. I want to be able to help solve this problem. It's not solvable in the sense that it's going to totally go away, but we can still be able to consume the water. We can still be able to use the water. We'll still be able to be safe with it. People have to understand what the ramifications of that means, how we do it. There's differences in people's thoughts in the city as whether we tap into a different water supply or we continue to clean up the one we have.
And we'll be getting into that.
We'll be getting into that. Those are some of the reasons I want to be able to be a city councilor, aside from the fact that I've really done it for 14 years. I mean, I've responded to residents' complaints for 14 years. I know what the process is. I know what departments to go to. I know how to get things done on the municipal level. And I'd like to be able to bring it back to the city that has really helped me flourish in raising my kids and gave me a great opportunity to live in an environment that's great for people.
Gotcha.
Okie doke. Well, the next question is, how do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
Right. Well, commercial development is something that I've been experienced with on the design level and the permitting level for a long time. And there's a very detailed process through the planning board, site plan review, state regulations that really consider the impact of those developments on neighborhoods and the city as a whole, whatever city you're in. How do you limit them? You limit them through the process. That is, there'll be public hearings for all of the developments that are proposed. As long as those developments are staying within the regulations of the state and they're staying within the considerations for the neighborhoods, then, it's a good thing. There are things called impact fees that the city can institute on developers that impact the city. That is, if a commercial facility wants to move into the city and they need a large flow of water for their daily operations. There's an impact to the city because the city will have to run a new water line to that facility, or they'll have to run a new sewer line, or they'll have to change the road system. Those are impacts for that development. So the city can institute impact fees not necessarily based on a new tax for that or tax incentives for that facility, but impact fees. What's it going to cost the city to support you?
Right.
And you can't always prevent different facilities from moving into what people call neighborhoods, but zoning regulations prevent a lot of that. And that's why they're there.
You ready for this one? We've started to get into it.
Okay. The biggie.
What is your stance on the public water supply? Do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
This is a unique problem to us. And as we've never seen it before. So we have to rely on what the people who know this problem best tell us. Right now, we're being told two different things. All right? The first is, and it's a great first step, and I commend the water department and the water commissioners and the mayor's office and the city council on solving the problem of taking the initial step of cleaning this problem up through the carbon filtration. It's a great move. That takes care of a lot of people's concerns. The question is whether it's totally safe. Just recently, last week, there was a meeting at the Moose Club involving two UMass professors that are experts, national experts on PFAS. What they told us was that the carbon filtration systems will not take out all 14 compounds or whatever number of compounds there were in the PFAS category. It won't take them all out. And the impact on humans is unknown of all those substances. So is the answer strictly carbon filtration, or is it a combination of finding another water source and tapping into it? Maybe it's a combination of the both. There's costs associated with all of it, and those costs will be definitely passed on to the consumer through the water fees. So we have to all be prepared for being able to solve this problem on I think, different levels. One of the third level of problem that a lot of people don't talk about is the effect of the PFAS in the aquifer on the residents who have private wells. Right? So if you think about the city wells, they have a big straw, probably an 18-inch diameter straw, into the aquifer, and there's a number of them, and they pump up millions of gallons of water a day. The normal residential homeowner who has a private well, is not on the Westfield water system, has a straw in the same aquifer. It's smaller, it's 6 to 8 inches, and it pulls out a couple thousand gallons a day.
Right.
But it's still the PFAS water. Unfortunately, for those homeowners, they don't have representation through legal action through the city. They don't have the ability to get their water filtered unless DEP says that at a certain level of PFAS, they'll install a carbon filtration system. But that water, essentially, if it's below the 70 parts per trillion level, that water goes untreated, unpaid for a cleanup, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people on the north side who are in that situation. To the point where the Department of Environmental Protection recognized this very problem. That is, DEP monitors every municipal water system in the state. They don't monitor private wells. They don't even know where they are. But in our case, DEP recognized that there is a problem, and they went through the unprecedented step of trying to find out where those wells are. And they contacted those people, and they came out and they tested those wells. Mine was one of them. I was within a certain radius of the air base. They drew a circle. Anybody in that circle got their water tested for free. Free. So DEP came out to my house twice. My water tested positive for PFAS twice. So I'm one of those people who will not be represented. My water will not be cleaned up. Now, the PFAS level in my water is really low on the parts per trillion scale, very low. So it's not considered to be a hazard under the current rules and regulations with DEP. And they've been lowered recently, we all know. There's talk that those levels are going to change again, and they're going to get lower. if that's the case, then I could very easily have a contaminated well in the same fashion that the Westfield wells were contaminated just by a change in regulation. So the reporting level for PFAS 3 years ago, was parts per billion, which is an astronomically small number.
Right.
Then DEP, or the state EPA, said, we're going to change that to parts per trillion, which is an even smaller number than parts per billion. But when that happened, all of a sudden the Westfield wells were contaminated because the change in regulation, not that the PFAS showed up overnight, but because it became a problem through the change in regulation.
Okay. Kathy.
Gotcha. All righty. Thank you very much for all those answers. What is your position on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in the Root Road area?
Well, charter schools, I believe, is really in the development of charter schools came out of the need for alternatives for public education. Now, my 2 daughters went through the Westfield public school system, and they came out and they were educated well. They were very successful, and I don't have any reason to believe or understand the Westfield public school system does not work for kids. It does. Charter schools are really born out of the need for parents to fulfill their desire to give their kids the best education they possibly can, and every parent should have that desire. It's no different than school choice or special education classes or help for the handicap. It's all in the effort to educate kids.
Right.
Charter schools are a little different than the public school system in that they're a privately owned, tuition-based, publicly subsidized private school.
Right.
And I think that's where people have a problem with it. They see a private institution that's publicly funded partially. I mean, they're still tuition-based, but they have a component of their annual budget that's subsidized by the state. I think charter schools offer a good alternative for people who want that education for their kids, in the same sense that people choose homeschooling. You know, I mean, as long as the charter school is accredited, it is organized, it is managed properly, it still goes through the same auditing process with the state as far as finances that the public schools go through. They can be and are a good alternative for people who choose that option for educating their kids. It's another good, viable option and an alternative to the public school system.
Gotcha. All right, we are about halfway through. Pete, quick break, please.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State T-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
8:32 and a quarter. We are back with Jeffrey Neese, candidate for Ward 6 here in Westfield. Let's see. We did that one. We have 4 more questions to go in about 12 minutes, as well as your soapbox, which I'll be giving you.
Okay.
We kind of hit this earlier, but let's get a little deeper into it. How do you increase money available for infrastructure, yet keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents?
If you look at the ways that public infrastructure, the roads.
Right.
So if you look at the ways that road improvements and road repairs are funded, there's three sources. There's local money, Westfield tax money basically, which is not every year. It's up to the appropriation request of the mayor. Currently there's no annual fund that furnishes money for that.
Okay.
There's Chapter 90 funds, which is the state appropriation every year. And then there's federal money that is issued by the Transportation Improvement Plan. And I'll explain that a little bit. So the big nut is the Chapter 90 funds. Right now, the city of Westfield gets about $1 to $1.2 million a year. And there's a very specific scope of work that money can be spent on. And it's a reimbursement grant. That is, the state just doesn't send over $1.2 million and you have at it. It's a reimbursement grant fund. So you do the projects, you spend the money, the city does, then you get reimbursed by the state. But it's under the microscope of what's approved. So not all of the work gets paid for, but most of it does. We get $1.2 million based on the state spending $200 million every year. And that's always through a bond. The state gets a loan through the governor's office for $200 million and then distributes it to the cities and towns. They're authorized legally to spend $300 million a year. That is, it's up to the governor's office to choose what level he wants to fund the Chapter 90 appropriations every year. Historically, it's been at $2 million. But if you look at Mass DOT and all of these state organizations who need to lobby for the $300 million spending level every year, it's been written by experts that the state should be spending $600 million a year just to keep up with the road repairs we have now.
Right.
At $300 million, we're still only halfway there, but historically, we're only spending $200 million a year. So the mayor's office and the city council should be advocating to the governor's office to spend $300 million a year on Chapter 90 funds. That's state money. The federal money is, all right, Western Avenue is being repaired right now, is being redone, realigned, fixed, new curbs, new infrastructure, new drainage. That's a federal project that is paid for by the Transportation Improvement Plan. The Transportation Improvement Plan has two components of control. One is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. They vote on the projects that get funded. They vote over in Springfield. It's made up of a group of selectmen, mayors, Mass DOT officials, that sort of thing. Our mayor should be on the MPO.
Okay.
The second organization that controls those funds is the Joint Transportation Committee. I was a member of that when I worked in Chicopee. That committee advises the voting group of the MPO. So they do the background work, analyzing the projects for different cities and municipalities in this area, and then distributes the money and gives that recommendation to the MPO when they vote. We need to have a member on the JTC. We need to have a member on the MPO. Our city engineer is on the Joint Transportation Committee. That's a good step. The second step is to have that double punch and have, I would suggest, the mayor's office, whoever the new mayor is, to be on the Metropolitan Planning Organization. That way we have a member on the JTC, we have a member on the MPO as a voting group. That's really the nuts and bolts of the way road improvement gets funded. The third component, of course, is tax-based money from Westfield. That's an in-house mayoral city council decision. I'm pretty qualified to help make those decisions.
I hear you.
Okay, moving on now. What issues do you have, if any, to making cuts to the school budget?
The city council directly making cuts to the school budget, I think, would be a last resort effort to try and make cuts to a school budget that they don't totally understand. Here's why I say that. Westfield's school budget is about $62 million a year. Rough numbers, $62 million. less than half of that is local contribution. So let's say 27 million is local contribution through the tax base to fund the schools. The other 34 million is Chapter 70 appropriations. So the way that all that equation gets figured out is they start with a base budget. That is, how much is it going to cost to run the city or to run the school system every year? The state wants to know. Then the state comes in, works with the school committee, works with a bunch of auditors, works with the department heads in the school department and the principals and the school superintendent, and they determine, with the city council's help and the mayor's office, how much the city can contribute. 27 million. But that analysis is not done in a vacuum. That involves a lot of people who know a lot about the school system. So then the state says, okay, if you guys can pay $27 million, we'll have our auditors look at that and we'll approve it. Then the Chapter 90 money comes back and fills the rest of that budget. Then the state gives us $34 million. So when we say, should the city council be cutting the school budget? I'd say, unless they're on the school committee too and understand the operations of the schools, they don't really have the expertise to be making arbitrary cuts to the school budget. The school budget is analyzed and reanalyzed and turned upside down and inside out on a lot of different levels before it reaches the city council for approval. And for the city council to go and say, on one night, say, I want to cut $2 million from the budget, but don't have an idea of why or where it's going to come from, is completely irresponsible. I think the school committee does a wonderful job. The school superintendent, their office, working with the state, does a really good job in coming up with the school budget every year. And Chapter 70 gives us over 56% of what we spend on our schools comes from the state. That's just Westfield.
Okay. How do you control excess spending? Or do you even think we have excess spending?
Sure.
Okay.
I think everybody has excess spending in all of the departments of the city. The way you control it is through the way you buy it and the way you spend it. Right? So if you budget a certain amount of money for let's say ammunition for the police department, okay? You'll have let's say $100,000 based on each officer running 100 rounds a week through his firearm as for practice. How do you spend it, or how do you buy it? Is it put out annually through a bid process, or is there reoccurring annual contracts that are renewable?
Okay.
So we should put it out to bid to Remington, to Colt, to all of the different ammunition manufacturers, put it out on the state bid process, and then how do we spend it? Is each officer required by state regulations to run 100 rounds through his firearm a week or a month, or is it 50? Or do the officers have an arbitrary number of an unlimited amount of the way they want to shoot their firearms? This is just one example of how you manage how you purchase your goods and services and how you spend them. Budgeting is one thing. You can always adjust what the budget realizes after the annual spending's realized, but you have to be able to control each line item. And the way you do that is you work with each department head.
Gotcha.
Okay, so a city councilor who would want to do due diligence would go to each department head with the approval of the mayor's office and say, I'd like to work with this department head and go through each budget line item and find out how they buy it and how they spend it.
Excellent.
All right, here comes the big one now. This is the big one.
Okay.
You need to give this full thought.
All right.
Do you prefer Westfielder or Westfieldian? They all give it so much thought. I don't know why, but they do.
I think I'm going to go with Westfielder.
See?
That's what everyone else has been doing.
Yeah.
Nobody likes Westfieldian.
Okay, Jeffrey, I've got 2 minutes for you to get up on your soapbox, and this is where you give your plea out to the folks of Westfield asking for one of their votes. And if Pete's paying attention, I might even have you look right into camera one over here doing.
There you go.
Camera 1 is the one with the light on?
Now it is.
That
All
it
right.
is.
Well, thanks very much for Kathy and Ken for having me on the show this morning. It's not often I get ever to be on the radio talk show. So I'm really a guy who is new to the public arena. I haven't been an elected official nor have run for anything before. So the process is new to me, but I'm really having fun with it, and I think it's a great process. My experience has been through management of projects and management of the municipal process.
Right.
So I've done both. I've been at the commercial construction level of major projects, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects, and managed them, budgeted them, purchased them, engineered them, worked with infrastructure for 40 years. I'm a 34-year resident of the city, and I've just retired from the city of Chicopee, and I'd like to give what has been a wonderful experience in the city of Westfield. I'd like to give part of that back because I haven't been able to in 34 years of living here because I've been working everywhere else.
Okay.
I really hope that people don't, when they choose their votes, don't look at the number of lawn signs that you see. Get in and find out what your candidates are. Find out what they've done for you. Find out how they communicate with you. Find out what their qualifications and experience is. And I hope through that process that people will know that they can trust me with their representation of Ward 6. And I ask for their vote on November 5th, and that's my deal.
All right, we made it through. Jeffrey Neese, candidate for Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Been a
much
pleasure.
for coming in. We appreciate it.
All right. Pete,
Good luck.
get me ready for our next candidate.
There must be some mistake. I didn't mean to let them take away my soul. Am I too old? Is it too late? Where has the feeling gone? Well, I remember the song. The show must go on.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day, the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating, Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio, 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Well, Kathy, we made it through one.
We did. Counting down. We're getting there.
2 more to go.
Oh, you missed it.
What did I miss?
You missed the half.
I missed the half.
You went right by it, Ken.
I did, didn't I?
You had an opportunity for a half, and you missed it.
And you know what?
I caught
you didn't. You caught that I missed it, but you didn't say, Ken, look.
Ken. All right.
Look,
Okay.
Look. Mike. What day is it? What day is it? Mike.
What day is it, Mike?
Are we on?
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
We are bantering.
You're lucky you don't.
We are bantering for a moment so that I can get up to 8:50.
We need to get the time so we can time you correctly because we like to keep everybody with exactly the same time.
I don't want.
How did he miss the half? We're not at the half.
Yeah, I don't want somebody 2 weeks or even 2 days from now turn around and say, you let Allie talk a minute and a half earlier and he got more time. It's not fair.
Because somebody will.
Yeah, and it happens all the time. So I'm very cognizant about making sure we stay on time with these because I want to be fairly and balanced.
You could be city council president.
You wait. You want to be balanced?
I said fairly and balanced.
Okay, fairly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. It is time for our second candidate interview. Dan Alley, incumbent for at large. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Ken, and good morning, Kathleen.
How are you?
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Good morning, Westfield.
So before we actually get to the questions, I already did this like twice with you, but I'm going to do it again because some of my viewers may not have been through it the first time. I want to know who you are, but before we actually get down to things. So tell me where you grew up, what schools you went to, and what do you do?
Well, as you can tell by the accent, I was born in Taunton. I grew up in a small town called Dighton, which is between Somerset and Fall River. I went to the Art Institute of Boston. Then I worked for Raytheon. After that, I joined the Army. I was originally supposed to be in the 10th Special Forces, telecommunications. Managed to graduate first in my class, and then a childhood injury really started acting up. And so I was reassigned, and I ended up in the 141st Battalion, Signal Battalion for the 1st Armored Division in West Germany. And that's back when it was still West Germany and Czechoslovakia, and Europe was still divided. And for a kid that was like usually the last kid in gym class to be going around the track, because I was like very tiny when I was little, I actually ran the Boston Marathon in 1981. Took about 5 hours, but I did it. Came back, went back to Raytheon for a bit, and then there was a phrase that kind of caught my attention called user-friendly software, and and things want to go toward PCs. So I actually left Raytheon on the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, and started my own ad agency, and so that's what brought me to Holyoke. I did that. We were the ad agency for like the Holyoke Mall, Pyramid Company, Crossgate Mall, Hanush Jewelers, a family business you can trust. We worked on that. And through the mall, we worked for like Wendy's, Disney Company, the West Mass Buick 7 dealers. It was a great opportunity. But it was a partnership, so the partnerships are sometimes a little bit complicated.
Right.
So after a few years, I left that, gave the company to the employees, actually got involved in construction. That's when Teresa and I got married. We were both married when we turned about 30. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. We have 3 kids, Christina, Marie, and Joe. And then, as we were raising a family, I needed to make more money, so I actually went into printing, actually running printing presses and that sort of thing, got into package printing. Injured 2 more discs in my neck right above the other injuries. And so then kind of became part of the group that brought PJ New England or Papa John's to this area. And I know, Ken, you love Papa John's.
That's a story for another time.
Yep. Another good example of how you should probably run a great business. Actually received a 100% a national award for 100% operational excellence. But decided to go back to school. I've got 2 degrees, one in graphic arts technology, printing, and another one in multimedia, which you guys are doing here with teleproduction. So I worked for Yankee Candle for a while. Papa John's then brought me back to try to manage some stores before they actually ended up closing in the region. And so then I actually started working in the wedding industry, doing more like videography and video editing and that sort of thing. Then actually worked in the wedding industry with a wedding planner that I produced. And that's about the time that the financial crisis was hitting the subprime mortgage mess and all of that. And I was invested in real estate as well. So I actually just stopped. And I was a customer for Tiger Press. But with my degree, I was actually able to go in and become the internet sales manager. So about 95% of my customers I've never met, but most people do their research online. So it's kind of gone full circle from actually building computers before there were computers or computers that we're familiar with, to using the internet to reach out to people, so they're able to find a business here in Westfield, in Western Mass, that the jobs fit us. Tiger Press is a great company. We've got this is a great printing area, always has been, with Holyoke in Connecticut, and so we can bring work to this area because that's how people are doing research. And so they have an actual person that is a designer, is a printer, can look at their jobs, consider other options. Wasn't advertising. Sometimes I redesign things. I redesign books. I offer alternatives, and all of a sudden they're able to produce more, or they're saving money, thinking in ways that they would not have thought of because they're only focusing on their catalog or their book or what they've worked on for a while. So, but.
Okay, we are running a little long,
Okay.
so I'm going to jump right into it. Why do you want to serve on the city council?
First of all, Westfield is a great community to live in. A lot of us have chosen to move to Westfield. But even as a young man, I was involved with, I was president of the Junior Historical Society. I grew up in a colonial town. My father's brother was not only built the ambulance service and helped to build the fire department in my town, but he was the scoutmaster for one of the really great Boy Scout troop. And a big part of Boy Scouts is community service. So you were constantly doing projects for organizations or helping people. And you had to do that on a regular basis. So on the political side of things, when I was living in Holyoke, in 1989, almost 30 years ago, so when Steve Pierce was running for governor, I realized that Steve would make a great governor. What he was talking about made a lot of sense. So at the time, I was involved with bus ministry. We were doing, we actually took 300 kids to Sunday school and junior church and that sort of thing from Holyoke, Chicopee, and Springfield. And but I ended up getting involved, and that's when I met Mike Knappich, Don Hummerson, but so many wonderful people from Westfield that were helping Steve and across the state, and I still continue to meet them. It was an amazing organization. So you get to meet a lot of wonderful people from Westfield, and that's actually what even led us to move to Westfield. Because of the schools, obviously the Westfield Theater Group, but even the programs that we offer here. My daughter Marie was in a class that was just an outstanding class, did some amazing projects through the high school. So there was just a lot of things that this community offered. It's an amazing community. And so, when you don't come from a place, you want to plug into it. And in my case, everybody knew who Teresa was. I almost had to put up signs so that people knew that I wasn't, Mr. Teresa Alley. I was, Dan Alley. But it's been able to, obviously I've had to knock on a lot of doors and talk to a lot of people. And you make connections. Like, for instance, your father. And I hope he's doing well.
Oh, thank you.
I would have never met him. I wouldn't know And I've learned a lot from the people because you're talking to people about what they're concerned about, but they also have knowledge and that history. And so that's a big deal, you know. I mean, and they make those connections. And when you run at large, you know, you're meeting somebody on the north side that starts talking about, well, I came from this area, or I used to live in your house, or I used to live next door to you, or, you know, I've talked to you know, your father, or that sort of thing. Major faux pas over here, mister. He's got mail, but Kenny will be checking his email.
Yeah, I need to turn my device down.
Yes, you do.
All right, but anyways, so that's really, you know, and obviously I ran for Ward 2 originally because we didn't have a city councilor, and for about 6 months. And so I took out papers, and by a month later, there were 4 people running in what's the lowest voting turnout ward. So that would have been a crapshoot. You would work your tail feathers off. And I knew I could work hard. I knew how to run campaigns. I had helped Mike Knappich when he ran in 1994. I was, you know, I did a lot of things in politics. So that's when I decided to run at large, because it seemed to make sense. You could, like I say, work very hard in a small ward with 4 people running. I think it was Carl Vincent, Brian Winters, Ralph Figge, and myself, you know. And, you know, 20 votes would have probably separated, you know, all of us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Kathy?
Okay, thank you for those answers. How do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
Well, obviously Massachusetts is a high cost of business and high cost of living state. And some of that we kind of do to ourselves with regulations, with assessed values and that sort of thing. But what you do is you need to encourage, you know, quality businesses and companies to come to Westfield and to create jobs. Okay, these are the people that are going to be working here, moving to this area, and that sort of thing. So things like Gulfstream, you know, Hardy, Old Dominion. You know, let's work to bring the best companies and shops to Westfield. Okay, so people want to come here and that sort of thing. You grow business by, you know, controlling your tax rate on businesses, and also any regulations that you have an effect with, by providing, you know, incentives, and we've supported some of the TIFs, which are state things that help companies to expand, to grow, to be profitable, to be able to compete and get some of those bids, because you're trying to draw business in, but you have to be able to have a competitive bid.
Right.
You know, if you're competing with North Carolina or wherever, you have to be competitive, because people aren't going to spend more money on something. You know, part of it is streamlining the permitting process, and obviously just trying to be business friendly. Obviously, with a concern with the natural resources and what the citizens want, and you have to take some tough votes. But that's part of it. But know that they're going to get a fair shake, and it's not a political thing, and that sort of thing. The other thing is like a highly trained and educated workforce. And so in doing that here, with some of the programs, for instance, you know, with education, but with the like the programs that we offer here at the school, where people are learning actual skills that you can get a job, or maybe work up to owning your own business, to be able to put food on the table, which is why we work in the first place, and be able to provide for yourself and learn those kind of valuable skills. You know, and not everything's based on the computer. The computer is just one of those tools. But there is a real world out there. So that sort of thing. And then just try to make Westfield an attractive place for people. Obviously revitalize our downtown, and that sort of thing. So
okay, great. 901 WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield. What is your stance on the public water supply? Do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
Well, that's an excellent question. We actually should be doing both. And so the city has done a good job on, you know, formulating the carbon filters that we have, okay? Westfield is blessed with some of the best water in the country, and it's also the least problematic. We don't have a lot of minerals in that water. We don't have a lot of metals and other things that would be clogging that carbon. So that's a serious calculation. So that's why we did that bench scale testing. And the Westfield Water Department did a great job in formulating that. But the thing is that you know, there's like 5,000 PFAS and PFOS chemicals in that family. And we only really look at about 35. So it's an emergent science. Obviously, what happened with all the excessive training that was done by a well was stupid beyond belief. Okay, but that's a pass-in by our federal government that they're now starting to take responsibility for. Okay, there's and it's also an emerging issue around the country. Westfield has become one of the first of 8 cities in the United States that the Center for Disease Control is testing the blood and the urine and that sort of thing. And we were actually tested, my wife and I were both tested for that. But 7 and 8 is one of the most contaminated sites in the country. So, like I said, the water itself is the least problematic, but you're going to a source. So we should be looking at other sources, especially when you consider like the Tycomedy Reservoir in Southampton, which has a 14 million gallon a day capacity. Holyoke only uses 4 million gallons. Holyoke would sell Westfield 1 million gallons of water for $500. Okay, we've got pipes and some infrastructure that's already there. When it came before the council, because ultimately the people of Westfield didn't mess this up, okay, and we shouldn't have to pay for it. That was part of it as well. So I was never a big fan of that permanent facility at 7 and 8, which is, was a $1.2 million item when we first voted for the first $5 million. Then it came back for $13 million, and all of a sudden now it was a $7 million item. And we were concerned that we didn't have an environmental service agreement in place, that the federal government, especially at that time, would not reimburse for any permanent work that the city did. We wanted to have something in writing from the federal government that said, we need to provide clean, safe drinking water to people of Westfield, but we want, any decision that we would make to provide that water would not impact their decision to whether or not to reimburse or affect that they reimburse that at all. That didn't seem to be asking too much. And that if we were going to have the council vote on appropriating, at this point, $18 million, and have the people of Westfield paying for it, yes, we have boards and commissions and that sort of thing, but come before the council and come before the people of Westfield to explain what's going on. And we had to fight like dogs, okay? I recorded some of those first meetings that weren't going to be recorded. You've got citizens now advocating on their own behalf to bring the Center for Disease Control here, okay? That's one of the things I'm most proud of is now you have a council that's actually backing the people up and listening. Okay, for instance, with Bay State Noble, you have them kind of negotiating in the development of a hospital zone. That's because there's not a city council that's going to rubber stamp something behind the back of the people. So you have the council that's listening to the people. And like I said, we take some tough votes that maybe not everybody agrees with, but we're asking the tough questions. We're trying to get information, and also, and I applaud you guys for what you're doing here because this is awesome, is getting information out to the people. Because like in cases of there's people on the north side that have, there are cancer clusters, there are issues and that sort of thing. But I'd rather have people know that it is the water or it's not the water. You don't want to go through your life having health issues, okay, and blaming it on the wrong thing when it was something else. It's better to know.
I am up against my halfway point, and we are behind.
Okay.
So I need to do a quick underwriting break, and we'll get back to things.
Okay.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Noble Hospital, a brand new name for a Westfield institution which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health, better together.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio, 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
And we are back with Dan Alley. And Dan, we have another question for you. What is your position on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in the Root Road area?
Well, I'm a big fan of choice. I think our education system is broke. It's sort of become, it is a system, and it's become a monopoly that's actually controlled. I believe that parents and local school boards should be making decisions on education, not private companies like Pearson and Microsoft. Obviously, I was a big proponent of ending Common Core and the PARCC testing and going back to when we had the top, we had the number one education system in the country, and we worked to put that on the ballot, which the Supreme Court knocked off. So I am in favor of, we've got great schools, obviously with St. Mary's and the high school, and I'm not too sure about the one at Root Road, but I think we need to offer different choices for education and demand, obviously, better out of our education system.
All right. How do you increase money for infrastructure, yet keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents?
Well, there's three parts to that. So you've got a tax rate, you've got the assessed value, and you've got spending and your current obligations. So we're about $5 million away from the levy ceiling, which is a point where we can't, raise any taxes anymore other than, through overrides. The other aspect is a lot of people and businesses really can't afford to pay more money. So we cannot keep raising taxes. And if you look at some of the formulations when you put in houses and that sort of thing, and we only put in maybe like 11 or 17 houses a year, so it's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago when Westfield was, growing really, really fast. We can't even grow our way out of this mess. Okay, so some part of it is the state regulations that we have to deal with. People have to realize when we raise taxes, even the 2.5%, that only brings in $1.7 million. So this year, the mayor's budget, he asked everybody to level fund it. It only went up by $3.7 million. So 3 years of those tax increases would have you at the levy ceiling very, very quickly. And assessed values is also a problem. Okay, we end up spending too much of our time working for basically the banks, the insurance companies, and the tax man, and everything else, and then try to survive on the rest. So maybe we need to consider, how do we control those assessed values? We could probably maybe consider doing a charter change where we elect our assessor. So the assessor becomes, like we do in Chicopee or other towns, where they're accountable to the people as much as being accountable to the mayor. In June, we took almost 300 votes trying to reduce the spending by $2 million. There was only 12 councilors present, so there was a lot of 6-6 votes that failed. But then they brought us back 2 weeks later to try to claw back some of that money. All right. Our own legal department is saying some of the things that we did, we couldn't do. Councilor Flaherty is talking to attorneys at the Department of Revenue who write the guidelines and would be in our face if we did anything that we weren't supposed to be doing. And they're saying, no, you're perfectly fine. So if we get some differing advice, or I'm not saying not really good advice or whatever, on what we can and cannot do, that's a bit of a problem too. So it's a combination of controlling spending. You cannot tax people or spend more money than you have. You know that in your own budget. It's no different. And we're kind of bumping up into what can we possibly do as far as income and revenue. So we have to live in those constraints. We haven't even seen the labor contracts. We were supposed to see those within 30 days and that sort of thing. So our problem is more of a devalued currency, and that's a whole other subject. But your money is not worth anything. So that's another problem that we face.
Okay, and we have another question for you. What issues do you have, if any, to cutting the school budget?
To cutting the school budget?
Making cuts.
Well, part of it is we have very little say in that. So even like this year, the school actually had like $1 million left over, which they decided to reinvest in that sort of thing, back into capital projects and that sort of thing. So that money wasn't returned to the city. So a lot of this is out of the hands of the city council. If they would return the money, then let's say somehow to come to us and reallocate it, whatever. So, but I think that if you talk to the teachers or any city employees, for that matter, I think in some ways we're top heavy, okay. But if you talk to the school committee or you talk to administrators, they'll say no, we're not, and compared to other places, well, this is where we live, so we need to not be comparing ourselves to other places. I think we need to compensate people fairly, but if you talk to teachers, they'll tell you, your employees will tell you where there are certain things that can be cut, Obviously, it's getting control of the people that are making those decisions. You know, because we can't go into certain line items. It's not the purview of the council. So we have no effect on that. You know, and even when there's $1 million left over at the end of the year, it's not like they give it back to us. They decide what they're going to do with it.
Okay, I'm looking at the clock. I have 8 minutes to go. 1.5 questions, and then your soapbox. So we can breathe here. How do you control excess spending, or do you even think we have excess spending?
Well, once again, like I said, if you talk to any city teachers or city employees, they'll tell you the answer is yes. The administrators sometimes have a different view of things. One thing you can do is use money for its intended purpose. One of the big ones would be budgeting money and putting it into the highway department. You have a food and a mortgage, you know, that you have to put money into. If you don't do it every week, you've got a problem at the end of the month. We collect about, we already know we need to spend about $7 million for the next 15 years to get the roads where they need to be. We collect almost $5 million per year in vehicle excise tax. We get about $1.7 million, I think, in Chapter 90 money every year. When you consider the stormwater money, the sewer water fees that should be going into it, and a certain percentage of the meals tax, we could have $7 million a year going into roads and road projects. I don't see that always happening. We've made some progress in the last couple of years, but that's a lot of us putting pressure on, going on a number of years at this point. So, and then let the DPW put it in that highway budget, and then let the DPW come up with maybe like a 5-year plan where and hold them accountable to, you know, this plan where they're saying these are the projects we're going to be working on this year, and here's what we're planning on doing, and get those things done. And the residents need to really keep putting pressure on their elected officials to accomplish that. I mean, one of the most things that I'm most proud of is that you have a city council now, that there are members that do listen to, you know, the residents and value that and try to make decisions on that.
Okay.
All right, now this next one is just to lighten things up a little bit, kind of transition from the questioning to where you get up and preach. And at this point, I'm going to say you're going to have 4 minutes or so to preach. But this is a non-binding question. We will not judge you or ever think differently of you, no matter how you answer it.
And it's a great import. Do you prefer the term Westfielder or Westfieldian? Deja vu.
Westfielder.
Ken?
Only one for Westfieldian so far, right?
Did we even have one?
I don't remember now. No.
I think
Okay.
so.
Yeah, Dan's
You can be a Uranian, but no.
Tim, he'll be here all week. All right. 4 minutes, Dan, for you to preach, brother. Tell the city of Westfield why you deserve one of their votes for at-large on November 5th.
All right, well, thank you, Ken. So, as I said, Westfield is a great city to live in. Our job on the council is to vote on issues. And I would say probably the one thing is results. I've worked with councilors and residents to get stuff done. I've worked to notify and inform residents on a lot of issues. And a lot of important issues, both with mail, not door-to-door, handing out flyers, you know, writing articles and that sort of thing, and trying to work to get information out. I actually ran 2 cameras to record the very first PFAS meeting. I enjoy being a city councilor. It's an honor and a privilege to meet so many good people, and obviously I had to meet a lot of people because I wasn't born here, and really work to make Westfield a great place to live, to raise a family, to run a business, to play, but also to be able to retire and stay here. Especially if this has been your home and you worked hard for this for your whole life. Okay, we want to be able to afford that. So some of the things that I've done is I worked to obtain about $600,000 in road funds and pothole repair equipment. I led the Fight to Defeat Complete Streets program, which took control away from local officials, but added costs to all the public and private projects. We voted to dissolve the Business Improvement District, which actually hurt small businesses. We worked with the legal department and the Department of Environment Protection to create a fire pit ordinance that protected residents from really excessive fines and language that would have stripped away anything the city would have done to try to regulate that sort of thing. In 2017, I led the successful campaign to inform and successfully defeat a ballot question seeking to extend the term of mayor by 4 years, which there were no forms for that. And in fact, you could barely find the question on the ballot. I wrote the abutter notification ordinance, which notifies residents now if there's a zoning change in your neighborhood. That's why you see those signs out there now. People get things in the mail and that sort of thing. And I work to amend the stormwater fee that provides the resources for much needed, specific, drainage work prior to, let's say, road construction. But also, and lets people, let's say, keep their flood control insurance. But it kept the rates low for residents and especially small businesses, because the smallest business was paying as much as the biggest business, right?
Yep.
So really, I thank the councils that I've been able to work with. We don't always agree on everything, but also the residents, because I owe this to them, because they educated me on what was going on in Western Massachusetts, what was going on in Westfield. And when residents come forward and they say something that they know about, it helps the developers, it helps the architects, it helps the council, the planning board, to do stuff and maybe save money and do a better project from the beginning, rather than fighting the residents or having a problem later on. So the fact that people have been able to, I think it's communication both ways. We really need the people, their expertise and their knowledge. So and it's supposed to be of the people, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Okay.
That's good.
We got like 30 seconds left.
Look at
I just want to say congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
On speeding things up and then slowing things down so that we came in on time.
I kind of do this for a living, but anyway.
Yeah, I have yet to have anyone not get in a question.
You're doing a great job. Thank you for what you're doing. I wish your father the best.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And he does have the most beautiful grandchildren.
And I do, and my
he
wife
drives the best cars too.
I do.
He does.
Right.
He does.
Right. And was it Murder Amongst Friends going on?
Murder Amongst Friends coming up.
The Westfield
this
Theater
weekend,
Group. I hit Teresa.
starring-
Teresa Alley.
I saw Teresa on
My lovely wife, who I have to remind her because I'm so tired at this, because I work on campaigns across the state. I'm literally exhausted, as you can probably tell, as I get tired. My accent just goes right back.
You're getting a little winded there.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I am. It's a 24/7 for about 4 or 5 weeks already.
Wow. Candidate for at-large, Dan Alley, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank
All right.
you.
Pete?
you.
A little less conversation, a little more action, please. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more bite, a little less bark, a little less fight, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. Baby, close your eyes and listen to the music, dig to the summer breeze. It's a groovy night and I can show you how to use it. Then come along with me and put your mind at ease. Hey, less conversation, a little more action, please. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more bite, a little less spark, a little less fight, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. Come on, baby, I'm tired of talking. Grab your coat and let's start walking. Come on, come on. 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 Don't procrastinate, don't articulate, girl, let's get playing. You just sit and wait around. Hey, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more bite, a little less spark, a little less fight, a little more spark. Shut your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby.
Underwriting for community radio is provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Every day, the YMCA strengthens the community through programs and services focused on youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. For all the Y's many programs and services, visit us on the web at www.westfieldymca.org. The YMCA, 67 Court Street in downtown Westfield. We're more than a gym. We're a cause. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Commercial Distributing Company of Westfield. Now in its third generation of family ownership, Commercial is one of the premier beverage distributors of Western Massachusetts. The Placek family and the staff of Commercial Distributing wishes you good times throughout the year and urges you to drink responsibly.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Oh, den mother
wait,
Kathy.
Don't start. Go.
9:23 on the nose. Oh, humble den mother side chick Kathy.
Den mother.
We have a minute and 20 seconds for idle blabber.
All right, I do have idle bladder. Blabber. Talk. Idle talk. 12 o'clock Saturday. Come and see me at Blue Umbrella Books, where I will be reading Hobknuckles. It's a great Halloween story for children and adults. Lots of fun. Get there. That's it. I'm done.
That wasn't quite a minute and 20 seconds.
Oh, I gotta keep talking. Oh, dear Lord. Well, there's always Murder Among Friends at the Westfield Theater Group. Friday night at 7:30, and then Saturday, 2 o'clock matinee and a 7:30 show. Tickets available at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Now can I stop?
Yep. Oh, you're doing all that, and either myself or Pete will be filming all of the forums coming up. Tonight is school committee. Tomorrow is Ward 1, 2, and 3. Both of those are at the Senior Center. And then next week, we get even further into it with 4, 5, and 6 on Monday. And then Tuesday is the mayoral debate at Dever Stage. And then we have Dever? Is it Dever? Denver? I just want to say Denver because I
know.
I go there every year now.
I know.
And then Wednesday up at the auditorium at the Tech Academy, we have the at-large. So lots of things for both you and I coming up.
And I do see them already playing on Channel 15 there at odd times, but I do see some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've already seen the first group we interviewed. That's been up. So
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for doing all this.
Yeah,
It is
I didn't realize Pete released them yet. I wanted them all to go out at once so I could be fairly imbalanced.
I have not released the half an hours.
Oh, the half an hour? Okay, yeah, okay.
Half an hours, but there's general. Do we do the general repeats?
Okay, the general repeat of the radio shows go out, but each half-hour interview, I'm holding them all off until I have them all done, and then we're just going to carpet bomb 15.
Yes, we are.
And notice that is the only thing balanced about you.
Okay. Speaking of balanced is the time, because it's always there and you can always count on it. 9:25 and a quarter. I have City Council candidate at large, Jim Adams, in the studio. Good morning, Jim. I'm going to have you move a little closer to the microphone.
Sure. Morning.
Okay.
Morning.
How are you?
Great. You?
Excellent. Before I get into questions, I do want to learn a little bit more about you. I think I've done this in the past, and I know you, obviously, but some of my listeners might not, or viewers, I should get used to saying by now. So, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school, and what do you do?
Well, that's interesting, because I was going to kind of start off with that this morning. Born and raised in Westfield, and as a matter of fact, I am a 1984 graduate of this school. And I couldn't even find my way in this morning because I haven't been here in a long time, and
it's different,
truly different. And I just certainly want to compliment the whole city for this facility.
Mm-hmm.
There are several, there are a lot more kids going here when I was there in 80 to 84. I was in the machine shop actually, and I was provided a job right out of this school. No college.
You're not wearing headphones, so you can't hear what you're doing when you hit the table like that.
Oh, you can. Okay, so I shouldn't be counting the table.
Just doing our listeners a favor. Go on.
Forgot the warning.
Yeah, no, but I walk in here and what a great job Pete has done with the studio, and you two for hosting this. It's what a great thing that the city of Westfield has. I never would have thought we'd have something like this in this school. I never would have thought we'd have half the programs in this school. So, wow, hats off to everybody that's made this happen in this city. It's a great thing that we do have.
And back to where I interrupted you, we were getting on to what you actually do, because we got up to where you grew up and where you went to school.
What I do for work.
Yes. Most of us know.
Yeah, many listeners know that.
Pretty well know. But.
Yeah, after leaving the school in 1984, I actually went to Westfield Gauge for 5 years. Had a great opportunity and made a great living for myself from the school. But I had a great opportunity for my family, as most people know, the First and Adams Funeral Home. In 1989, I went there, went to school, graduated from down in Newton with a degree in funeral directing, and I've been there for, I don't know, it's 30 years now. So I'm the vice president. I'm fortunate to be working with my father and my son, and at the time when I got in, my grandfather was also working there. So I'm the fourth generation working at the funeral home, and my son now is actually the fifth, which is a pretty exciting thing, and that's kind of gives me the opportunity to do what I'm doing now, kind of frees me up a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Why do you want to serve on the city council?
That's another great question.
Yes, I've got a lot of them.
Again, as many listeners know out there, I've been a city councilor for 10 years. I served my first term. I think I served for 6 years. I took a break. Business. I just didn't have the time that I thought I needed to serve the city. I was convinced to come back in when Mayor Knappich was serving as mayor. So I came back in for another 4 years. And again, I found that I really probably didn't have enough time to do the right job. So I did step down. And I've been out, I think, 4 years now. And in the last couple years, I really haven't liked the direction that things are going in the city council. So many of the residents in town have convinced me to do this again. And I certainly couldn't do this without my son coming into the business. So I do have a little bit more free time. And I want to help the city as I did before. Again, I don't think I liked the direction that the council was moving in. So I care about the city. I have a lot vested in the city. My family's here. I'm gonna lived here, and I'll probably die here. So if I can certainly help the city out, I'm willing to do that, and that's why I'm sitting here right now.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. Moving on. How do you increase commercial and industrial development in town in order to reduce the residential tax burden when nobody wants anything in their backyard?
You're absolutely correct, and I think that the biggest problem people have is the trucks. However, we have we are a community that, because we have the Turnpike and 91 and Route 20 and Route 202, are a great place for businesses to come to, and a lot of that becomes trucking. I think if we have an opportunity if we're able to widen Southampton Road, I think that's where most of the truck traffic is. If we're able to do that, I think bringing in these new companies want to come here, and I think Peter Miller and Joe Mitchell, who is not here anymore, have done a great job of bringing businesses here, but we certainly need to keep streamlining the process of getting them here. We want to be a city that a lot of these businesses say, hey, they're a great town to work with, and I think it is, but I think we need to do a few more things to bring those businesses in, and I think widening Southampton Road and making that a couple more lanes will ease in the burden of the traffic, which I think that the residents in the city will accept if they don't have to, get bogged down every day. So I think that's one way to bring the businesses here. They already want to come here. We just got to make it easy for them to do that.
Interesting. Ken?
Mm-hmm. You notice how some interviews just fly along and some just take forever? This one's flying.
This one's flying.
Yeah, we might have time for chit-chat at the end. What is your stance on the public water supply? All right, do you trust the carbon filtration, or do you want to see an alternate source of water used?
No, absolutely. I think the job that the council has done to take care of to take care of our problem up there on the wells on East Mountain Road was the right decision. We needed to take care of our water, and we did that. I know there were some members of the council that wanted to hold off. They wanted to wait till the money comes through. Well, guess what? I think recently, as many people have saw, our state rep, John Vilas, is bringing monies back into town that we spent, and that's what we were hoping for. The water issue, to me, is taken care of. I spent a lot of time when I was here before, with the Granville Reservoir, and we always supported them fixing the dam. We spent a lot of money up there. Our aquifer is one of the best aquifers of any city. I think our water, the water that, my understanding was when I was here and toured the facility up there on Reservoir Road, we have higher standards of drinking water than you do buying it off the counter at the grocery store. So our water is better than the bottled water we're buying. It's always been, and I think it always will be. Yeah, we had a little glitch up there in East Mountain Road. We took care of it. I'm fully hopeful that our drinking water will continue to be the same thing. You read in this PFAS thing, and I haven't kept up on, I'm not a counselor at this point, but I've read a lot about it, and it's the same when you're cooking at home. Some of your nonstick pans have the same thing as that. What they're saying is we have the problem with here in town. So I think there's issues, with water. It means I think we're taking care of it. So I don't think, to me, it's an issue. I think it's been taken care of, and I think the right decision was made when we went and spent all the money up there to fix our water.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Okay. One more question for you here, and that would be, what is your position on charter schools coming into the city, particularly in that Route Road area?
That's an interesting question. I have no problem with charter schools as long as they're done the right way. I think everybody, wants to give their children the best education that they can. If they choose that a charter school is a way that they would like to go, why not have the opportunity to do that? Whether it be here or another city. Everybody has every parent wants the best for their children, and I think our schools are absolutely wonderful. Could we do better? Absolutely. We got some buildings we need to take care of. The high school needs to be, we need to do something with the high school. But if there's a parent or child that think there's a better opportunity somewhere, absolutely. If they want to go to a charter school, they should have the right to do that, whether it be here or another town.
Okay.
Really, really flying here.
I know.
I'm about 5 minutes ahead. So what I'm going to do is, because we are at the halfway point, I'm going to shoot over to our underwriters, and then we'll come back and do the other half. And while we shoot over to the underwriters, we'll figure out what we want to chat about at the end of this, because I know we're going to have some time.
Oh, we always come up with chats. Right. Always.
Pete?
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Noble Hospital, a brand new name for a Westfield institution which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health, better together.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Commercial Distributing Company of Westfield. Now in its third generation of family ownership, Commercial is one of the premier beverage distributors of Western Massachusetts. The Plasek family and the staff of Commercial Distributing wishes you good times throughout the year and urges you to drink responsibly.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio, 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
9:36 and a half, Kathy. Look at that.
You got it without me. I wasn't looking. I'm fired. I'm sorry.
I would never fire my den mother.
That's because I'm such a good influence. Yeah, okay.
Oh,
moving right on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, forget it.
Back with City Council at-large candidate Jim Brown. We have a few more questions.
Jim Brown?
Jim Brown, Jesus. Jim Adams.
He was actually, I like Jim Brown. He was a good guy.
Jim Brown was
there
Ward
goes my influence.
He was Ward 2 before Ralph Figge.
That's correct.
That must have been what triggered me there.
Jim Brown. Okay.
My God. Sorry about that. Even the best of us will flub things up now and then.
Ken. I forgive you.
All right.
I wouldn't if I were you.
I have a lot of things on my mind right now.
Yes, you do.
All right. How do you increase money available for infrastructure, yet keep the schools, police, and fire departments properly funded without overtaxing the residents?
There's no easy answer to that. Certainly, the police and fire are probably the two most, in education, probably those are the three most important things in the city. Infrastructure has always probably taken a second seat because, a lot of that money comes from the state. How do you raise money? I mean, you cut spending is probably what you do, but where do you cut it from? Nobody likes to see spending cut. You only have so much money that comes in, and you have to decide where it's all going to go. You hope the state brings more money in, or you basically have to cut your spending somewhere to put your money in infrastructure. That's not an easy answer, and that's a long-term thought-out process. That's kind of when you set up a 5-year plan with a city. Where are you going to put your money? And that 5-year, which we haven't had, I don't think, in several years, since actually Councilor Liptak really put a good plan together, that we really need to look in the future and decide where that's going to go and stick with our plan. So sometimes we vary from something we plan to do because something else comes up. I agree with that, and it's something that you just have to stick with and say, this is what we want to do. We hope the state gives us more money, and we cut here or there to try to put a little more money into the roads and the infrastructure that we need to do, and you hope that works. That certainly is an easy question that you can't answer in a minute or two for sure.
Well, we have more than a minute.
You could take 2 minutes. It would be okay. Are you all set on that?
Yeah, that's certainly is something that has to be a planned out thing, and you just can't go day by day. You has to sit back and write this down and funnel as much money as you can towards it. Everything's important in this city, and you just have to decide what's more important, I guess, as far as money goes.
Well, then this next question sort of follows that same idea, but it's a little bit more specific, and that would be, what issues do you have, if any, on making cuts to the school budget?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you call cuts to the school budget. Every year, when the budget comes through, there's always things that we look at. I've always tried to support the schools as much as we can because education is one of the top 3 things I think in the city that are most important. So if we're going to put money somewhere, it needs to be in the schools. It needs to be in education and fire and police, and I guess infrastructure, in my opinion, is probably 4th to that. But we need to educate our children. We have great teachers. We have great buildings. Can it be better? Absolutely. Everything can be better in the city. But is education one of the top important things that we need to put money to? Sure. So I don't think we cut anything out of the budget. I mean, I haven't seen the budget. I guess that's a year by year thing that's presented, to us, and we have to make a decision. I mean, obviously, we give the school department a number. They decide where the money needs to go. I've always tried to keep that number where it is. I mean, you're within $100,000 or $200,000 every year of what's presented to us in most cases. I've never voted to cut the school budget. I think we go back and forth and kind of meet halfway sometimes. But I think recently, some of the monies actually, if they're over at the end of the year, the school's been pretty good about actually sending them back to the city. Years ago, that never happened. Mm-hmm. That money was always spent every dollar they could, and I think the school department is pretty honest with the city and works well with the city now, from what I can see. So you fund them as much as you can. You do what you can, and if there's anything extra, it comes back. But you definitely provide them with what they need to do, with our children and in our buildings. It's a big budget. I know that. I don't know, $60 million, I think, or something like that now.
Mm-hmm. Good. Excellent. Ken?
How do you start to control excess spending, or do you even think we have excess spending?
Well, I don't know what you consider excess spending. I think things come into the city that are priority. There's emergencies. Obviously, you need to spend things that that's what free cash is sitting there for in most cases. If there's an emergency, you have to spend it. Excess spending is you look at the budget, and we certainly I don't think there's a lot of excess spending going on. I think every budget that that at least when I was there, that came through was pretty bare bones. There wasn't anything extra to spend. If there's anything extra to spend, it usually is prioritized, and we only spend it if we have to spend it. So I don't, actually, when I was there wasn't a lot of waste. There wasn't a lot of extra. So excess spending is certainly 13 members of the city council and the mayor look at each one of those. Look at some of the things that come in, and they decide where the money's going to go. So obviously, 7 members or 9 members in some cases of the city council have to determine that is a need to spend extra money. But that budget is pretty tight from at least when I was there. I'm sure it is now. So I don't think there's a lot of excess there. Prioritize should be the most important thing, and I think that 5-year plan again. You cut out your excess spending if you have a good plan for the future.
All righty, here we go with the most important question of the hour. And I want you to give this great thought because it has deep import.
And we will not think differently of you no matter how you answer.
Oh, that's not true. We definitely will. Do you prefer the term Westfielder or Westfieldian?
You weren't expecting that. I could tell by looking at your face.
Westfielder, Westfieldian. What would you rather?
I prefer either one. All right. Sheesh. I guess Westfielder. I guess I don't know. I wasn't prepared for that question.
One of these days somebody's going to say Westfieldian. Somebody's going to say that.
I guess you want me to. I could say it if you want me to.
You already answered.
No, your answer is down in stone, and it will be called to task later.
Okay,
we will.
Sure.
Jim, this is the time in the interview where I give you a soapbox. This is where you stand up on your soapbox and you preach to the lovely citizens of Westfield, and this is where you ask them and tell them why you deserve one of their votes for Counselor at Large on November 5th.
All right, you got it. Well, I guess I'll start off with saying I think at this point in time, with a new mayor, that it's probably time for someone with experience. I mean, I'm looking at myself sitting here, or sitting in the past for 10 years. I know the system. The new mayor is certainly it's gonna take a little while for the mayor to settle in and figure things out here in Westfield. And I think with my experience being here for 10 years, and I'll put my experience up against anybody's. When I was here, I was always the one to stay out of these bickering things back and forth, which I see are happening a lot now. It becomes this group against that group, which I think is wrong. I think when I sat here, every vote that I've taken, I don't think I've taken anything back. I was always one to look at ways of, we talked about the revenue. I sat 3 years when I was counselor working with the town of Montgomery and the Fisheries and Wildlife for a restriction up at the Montgomery Reservoir, which brought $1 million into the city. I did that on my own. I certainly did that with the support of the mayors, and the council, approved it. But that was $1 million that the city never had. And I worked for 3 years very hard to bring that in. I also worked with Chief Camerata in the towing. The towing, the towers weren't, we weren't charging, the city wasn't making anything off the towing fees. That now has brought, I don't even know what that number is, but it's probably close to, $150,000 a year that the city brings in from that towing fee, and it's not taxed. That isn't somebody paying tax. Most insurances cover that. Neither was the money from the Montgomery Reservoir. So that money was monies brought in that didn't cost them anything. That's what I was proud at doing when I sat here, was looking at the big projects instead of looking at the little things. And I tried to take on a project that was going to benefit the city. So I did that with a couple projects. Those two being, so we're probably up to $1 million in the towing fee and $1 million from that. So I brought in $2 million to the city, obviously with help from other people, which I think was important. And I think. And I'm really surprised that that no other council really has looked at doing a project like that. We have other land that we own in other towns that maybe there's a possibility of bringing some more revenues in, like there was in Montgomery. And I think I would probably look at that, because it's free money. It's free money with a restriction they put on, which actually opened up properties for everybody to hunt and fish and hike and bike on, which is. I'm a big hunter and fisherman, and so it was a passion of mine, and certainly a lot of the hunters and fishermen appreciated what I did. I also was proud of sitting on the Council on Aging. When I spent 2 years off the council, Mayor Knappich put me on the Council on Aging, which I presided over, and we went out, and I was the guy that went out and with Tina Gorman and looked at all other communities and what type of senior center they had. The mayor gave me, his word that he would fund it. So when I came back onto the council, we actually voted for that senior center, and it is what we see now in Noble Street, which is a beautiful facility with probably one of the best directors in the state running it, Tina Gorman. She's done a wonderful job with that, and I'm very proud of the senior center also. So those are the kind of projects that I when I sit, I like to do something. And I think all three of them have benefited Westfield in a huge way. So I would like to get back on, which I have a little more time to do. I have too much invested in the city to let it go in the direction, in my opinion, that some of the councilors are getting in, and it's crazy there right now. It's not like it used to be. I think we can bring, with a few other people that are running, I think we could bring it back to where it was and move forward in making the city great, which it is. But if I don't run and a couple other people, don't get elected, we're going to have. I don't like the way the city's going. We could have some problems, in my opinion.
Interesting. Thank you, Ken.
All right. That is pretty much it. I'm not able, and you're not able to ask any additional political questions, because we have a set amount of questions. We also, however, have a set amount of time for each candidate, and you didn't come anywhere near burning through all of yours. So I still need to have you on for a little while.
Sure.
If you want to bring up something about the city, by all means you can. We can talk about it. I just can't come right out with any questions. But while you might be thinking about things, I want your input on something, because it's something I brought up on the show a few weeks ago. And obviously it was related to an experience I went through. And that's, pre-planning for your end of life. And I'm not saying go down to First and Adams and start to do this. There are many funeral homes to choose from. So I'm not directing anyone there. And this holds true for all of them. You can pre-plan, but if you don't want to go that far, you should at least be talking with your friends and family as to what you want to happen. You should have at least a will. A lot of these things are important. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. They think it's taboo. How necessary, how important is it to have that conversation, Jim?
Well, I think it's very important. I think, it's something none of us can escape, unfortunately. I wish we could.
That's kind of funny.
I tell people, it's, you buy flood insurance, you buy fire insurance, you buy all these insurances. You hope they never happen, but unfortunately, when you buy death insurance, you're going to use it because it's going to happen to everybody.
Yeah.
There's certainly there's been a big there's been a lot of the prearrangement. years ago, there wasn't as much prearrangement. A lot of people did that when somebody was going to a nursing home and it was a money issue where it was kind of a spend down issue, thing that you're going to have to do before the nursing home took your money or the state took your money, which, you know what, hey, you're going there for care and you should pay for some of that care. I agree with that. I don't agree with, them taking all of your money. And that's what it is these days. You have to be pretty much broke before, the state starts paying for your care in the nursing home. So, since then, a lot of people, younger people, 50, 60, and whatever what that age is, probably more people in their 60s. Not a lot of people in their 50s do it, but I think once you get to the, that 60-year-old thing, you start thinking of, what is going to happen. And the industry has changed. Cremation is 50% pretty much, from where it was 10% when I started in the business. But it just makes it a little bit easier when, you sit with a husband and a wife or whoever you may be, and do this ahead of time. You can laugh about things. You can joke about things. A lot of people do it because they don't want their children to have to make those tough decisions. So they come in and they pick out exactly what they want. And some people, choose to prepay for that, and it locks in the price. That's the advantage of prepaying for something at this point. And 20 years later, if they're fortunate to live that long, or 30 years, whatever it may be, the cost is locked in. I locked the whole cost in. There's never another dollar that is to be paid. So that people are very. You get a husband and wife that walk out and say, you know what, I feel good about this because my kids aren't going to have to pay for it. They're not going to have to worry about what I might have wanted. It's all written down, and I sit with 2 and 3 people a day sometimes, and people seem to be relieved once they do it. I mean, nobody wants to talk about death, certainly. I mean, it's all going to happen to us, but we all hope to live to 90, 95 years old and be happy and live a happy life. But unfortunately, sometimes life doesn't treat us as good, and we don't make it that long. So, but people walk out the door, relieved that it's done. And I'm happy to sit with anybody who wants to certainly talk about it. And a lot of people don't even have to prepay, but it's written down what they want, and it's one more, thing that the checklist that they have that they want to get done. So it's
it's not just a prepay, which is nice, but it's the fact that everybody knows what you want. When my mother passed, it was sudden. We knew it was going to happen, but not as quick. And we had no idea, what she wanted or what to do. And that is a horrible experience that I don't think families should have to go through. You should know ahead of time what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think that's what people struggle with, Ken. I think people struggle with, I'm not sure what mom or dad wanted, so they're forced with the decision to make the decision. And they're not sure if it's the right decision or not. And then, that they struggle with that for years to come after that if they keep going back and forth to say, maybe mom didn't want this. So it certainly makes it easier for them that they don't have to make that decision, and mom gets what mom wants because she has it written down.
Excellent. We came up to the magic time that I needed to hit. Council candidate at large, Jim Adams, thanks for coming in this morning and sitting with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if I just, one more thing before you shut off here, I just want to take a moment to thank Brian Sullivan, our mayor. He has spent many years, I sat with him in the council. He's done a wonderful job as mayor. He's decided to move on. I hope good luck to him. And he's a great guy, and he's done a great job as a mayor. It's not an easy job to sit in there in that office. I know that. So, Brian, thank you for what you've done for the city. Your family has done many great things, and many great things to come for your family. And good luck to you. And you're a great guy, and good luck to you.
All right, thank you, Jim. Just sit right there for a second. Coming up tomorrow on Tina Gorman's show, we'll have Bill Oniski, John Beltrandi, and Kristen Mello. So you want to make sure you tune in for that. You know what, Pete? I'm done. I've had it. Are you ready to take me out? All right, take me out.
Bomba-dee-da, 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 bomba-dee-da,
until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then.
Who when we're together. Just sing a song and think about sunny weather. Happy trails till we meet again.